As Patrick just mentioned, I think we all agree we'd rather have Coach Donovan in the practice facility right now, okay, getting ready for tomorrow night, and we'll get him back to do this at a later date. Is that a fair trade? Yeah? Okay. Anybody watch the game last night? Yeah. All right, moving on. I was asked to share a little bit about my experience and influences and experiences as a Catholic, and how that has helped influence and shape who I am today, and then share a little bit of a story about Thunder. And so I think I can bring those two things together. The confidence I had in being able to bring those two things together, because I'm a parishioner of Christ the King, and in how many ways, can the Spirit move you to do something and to provide some guidance or inspiration or advocacy. And I was thinking of something that happened literally right around this building 9 years ago when I moved from Seattle. I've been with the organization for 14 years. Moved from Seattle with the team to Oklahoma City. And I was literally the first employee in Oklahoma City in advance of the legal dispute that was happening in Seattle at the time. But we knew that if the lawsuit either went our way or there was a settlement that allowed the team to come to Oklahoma City, we wanted to start business operations immediately. And so I was dispatched to come to Oklahoma City under an alias, sit in a hotel, and start to pull together some business alliances so that if the moment came, we'd be ready to go. And so we had to tell a few white lies in the process to get me here, keep me quiet, to not disrupt the legal process. So Father Rick, I don't know if I've completely confessed all of that, but today might be the day. But I was here on July 2nd, and a number of us were here to hold up the skirt 2 to 3 weeks after the announcement had been made, and I ran into PJ Carlson. If you remember PJ, he was our original head coach. He moved from Seattle with the team, and he was here for his first visit. It was right after summer league had started. He was here to do a quick orientation with Sam and the other folks in the basketball operation, to get the practice facility figured out, start to put together an agenda for the players, and so on and so forth. And I know PJ, obviously, we worked together in Seattle. So we crossed paths in the lobby of the Skirvin. And he says, "Hey, Double D's, how are we doing? You got to tell me about, what are the top 5 restaurants in town?" Right? Because PJ is all about, it's like an encyclopedia of the best place to eat in every city in North America. So the first thing on his mind was, where do I eat? The second question he asked me, he said, "Where do you go to Mass?" And I'm embarrassed to tell you, and tell him at the time, I didn't know. I had been so consumed by the work, and so consumed by what was in front of me, I had rarely just stepped outside of that zone for those first 2 or 3 weeks. But it was a powerful statement to me for him to have asked me that question. Because to him, that was a priority. Right? He had a purpose. And he needed to know, I'm in Oklahoma City, I need to know where to eat, and I need to know where to Mass. Hopefully not in order. That was important to him. And it reminded me to keep those priorities in check as well. Those are one of the first few things I think about when I was asked about my influences. The second thing I think about is coming from a family that has been actively involved in the Catholic community for as long as I can remember. I'm originally from Long Island, New York. Ironically, so is Billy Donovan. And I come from a traditional Irish Catholic family. My mom was the oldest of 7. And I can tell you a few stories about that in and of itself. I think about the things that we do best is we serve each other. And we get involved. Not like what you're doing today, or if you're involved in Knights of Columbus, or other groups that you're involved with. It's about coming together and serving others. And I think about how did my family kind of adopt that perspective. One of the earliest things that I recall about my parents telling me about their upbringing was that they grew up, and Mom and Dad grew up literally about 6 blocks away from each other. And they met at grade school. And they met because my grandfather was coaching the boys' middle school basketball team at St. Rayfield in East Meadow, New York. Now, my mom's the oldest of 7. She's 2.5 years younger than my dad. So I asked at one point, why was grandpa coaching middle school boys basketball when his oldest daughter was 2 or 3 years younger and the oldest son was in 1st or 2nd grade? Well, the answer was he was involved. He was involved in church, he was involved in school, and there were opportunities to serve, whether it was a basketball coach or if it was a collector, or whatever it was, he was involved. And I can remember growing up as a kid and going to Grandma and Grandpa's house on the weekends, almost every weekend, because we lived relatively close. My grandmother, who's still with us today at 91, played the piano and organ at St. Raphael's for more than 50 years. So I can remember every Sunday, Grandma was gone from 7 a.m. to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. She played every mass. And I can remember 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, she had to go to a funeral, or she had to go play a wedding on Saturday nights. That's just a part of our culture. We were around St. Raphael's all the time, being involved. My mom being the oldest of 7. So many of my aunts and uncles were involved in so many activities that you just naturally become a part of that sense of activity, purpose, relationships. And it infused a lot of what we have done as my family then developed. We moved to Fort Worth, Texas, or Arlington, Texas, actually, in the late 70s when I was in middle school. And as I was thinking about that experience, I was thinking, what do I remember the most about moving as a 5th grader to Arlington, Texas? Was it the school? Was it my new friends? Was it our new house? I had to think a little bit about each one of those. What I remember the most was being at St. Maria Goretti's school almost every night. My parents saw that as a way to get acclimated to the community, to immediately get involved in the fundraisers, in the school activities, in the church programs, in the fundraisers that seemingly happened almost every night. And it was how we became acclimated. It's how we learned to be involved. And it's where all of our friends today come together. In fact, my dad is recovering from a cancer treatment right now. And he needed to ride to the doctor's office last Friday. And the woman who drove him at 7 o'clock in the morning is literally the first family we met in 1979 in Arlington, Texas, Pat and Judy Bader. And we met at St. Maria Goretti. So a lot of these kind of things come to mind when I was asked to think about this discussion this afternoon. After St. Maria Goretti, I went to Nolan Catholic High School, one of the largest Catholic high schools in the state of Texas, in Fort Worth. My mom began volunteering there just before I entered Nolan. And I'm the oldest of 4 boys, so we spent almost 20 years collectively being involved in that school as students. My mom was there as an unpaid volunteer in a full-time capacity for more than 30 years. She worked in every office, worked in every event, coordinating volunteers and coordinating activities and providing mentoring opportunities and programs for kids for more than 30 years. And left an indelible mark on us in terms of how do you serve, how do you give, how do you get involved, and how do you know the breadth of all these opportunities. She passed away in 2009, and one of the things that my brothers and I immediately did was create a foundation in her honor, the Mary Ellen Byrnes Foundation. And today, we're, I think, 8 years into this now. We've been raising enough funds where we award scholarships now every year to 2 juniors as they go into their senior year at Nolan High School. And those awards are based on academic success, although you don't have to be a great student, you just have to work at it. Extracurricular activity, so we don't care what you do, play sports or be in a band or both, but you gotta do something. But the majority of the criteria that is evaluated by our family and the school is community involvement. You gotta be involved. You gotta have a meaningful experience with others. And you have to do more than what the school's asking you to do. You have to have a meaningful integration into not only the Nolan community, but the Catholic community in Fort Worth. And we're really proud to have created this foundation that recognizes these students. And in fact, next week, we'll be awarding this year's scholarship winners. And it's a really meaningful experience for my family to be a part of. So now we fast forward, and I'd say that when we moved to Oklahoma City in 2008, I finally was able to answer PJ's answer of where to go to Mass. A number of our friends, including the president of our business operations, Danny Barth, were immediate parishioners at Christ the King. And so we became parishioners at Christ the King. My kids are now all enrolled at Christ the King, and we're excited about the opportunities that we can bring to that community as we get more and more involved. My kids are in 2nd grade, kindergarten, and preschool, so we're in the early era of being involved and writing those checks. But we're excited about being involved, and I think about the examples that my grandparents and my parents have established for us in terms of being involved in so many ways. as I think a bit about the inspiration of the Catholic Church and Catholic faith, and a little bit about how that infuses me personally and our culture at the Thunder, I couldn't help but think about the experience that I had on Easter Sunday. We were almost on time, Father Rick. 7:55 for the 8 o'clock mass. But I was with my dad, and I was with my son, who's a second grader. So he's not quite at his first communion, but he's a few weeks away. And because we were there at 7:55, our choice was the foyer in the auxiliary room, or it was, as Father Rick described, courtside. We were in the auxiliary seating right behind the altar. And so we sat in the third row, and as we sat down, I said to my son, I said, have you ever been here before? Have you ever sat this close to the altar? And he said, no, we're not allowed back here. And I thought, I would have said that 30 years ago, or 40 years ago now, but I had the nuns, wrapping my knuckles in the rulers to create the fear, right? He was telling me how unusual that experience was. So you think about that for a moment. The power of sitting that close. And the aura of the priests, and the altar boys, the altar girls, and the candles, and the Eucharist, and the incense, and all of that is a powerful thing. Mass ended, and as we were walking out unsolicited, I didn't say anything yet to my son. As we were walking out, I kind of put my hand to his back and kind of guided him out. He looked up at me and he said, Dad, that was intense. And I thought about that a little bit. It should be intense, right? And I used that as a catalyst to talk to him about Mass and the power of prayer and the power of communion and the Scripture and the things that we were doing in Mass that he's learning, obviously through school and through attending Mass. But he's not quite there yet. But that gave me a great opportunity to share some perspective that I want him to learn. And I don't know that I would have had that opportunity that day or that moment. I don't know when I would have taken the time to talk more deeply about some of this. But when he looked at me and said, that was intense, I felt like that was a moment. And the Holy Spirit could find you in so many ways. And that was a moment for me to communicate with my son, to share some of the power that I wanted to share with him about the faith and about the participation and about being a Catholic and why we're there and what are we doing and why are we listening and why are we going through the rituals of what we're doing. It was a pretty powerful moment. And so I appreciate that I had the opportunity to sit courtside and to share that with my son. And maybe even more powerful was watching my dad observe me having that conversation with my son. He didn't interject and he didn't, share or add on. He just stood back and he let me be a dad. And he coached me non-verbally with just a smile and a wink. And I thought that was a really powerful thing for me to be a part of as well. As I think about Father Rick's homily that day, he talked a little bit about his experience having just been at a Thunder game and how he had provided the invocation that day. And he was walking out of the building after the Thunder game, and he was with some friends, and they were talking about how the Thunder fans were, in a fever pitch because the game was over. They were walking out with enthusiasm and bouncing their step, and they were evangelizing for the Thunder. And he challenged us as Christians that day to evangelize for Christ in the same way, in the same manner, the same enthusiasm, the same confidence. And it was a really neat analogy because I think a lot of us understand what the story was and what the purpose was. As I reflected on that, certainly that afternoon and then through the days leading up to today, I thought about how that's really an opportunity for me in the role that I have with the Thunder to continue to do the things that we've always believed to do, and that is to create evangels for the Thunder. But to do so in a really purposeful and meaningful way, right? We all kind of joked already today about the fact that the team lost in Houston last night, coach needs to be at practice, and we're all consumed with whether the team won or lost, and we're consumed with what Westbrook's doing, or we're still worried about why Durant left, or whatever it is. And those are important things to our business. That creates fandom, that creates a connection. There's an emotional thing that happens when you're a fan or you're a consumer of our business. And we can't lose sight of that. But we're also so much bigger than that. we can provide such a bigger purpose through the vehicle that we have with sports and the Thunder. And that's one thing that we've always tried to think about and respect in terms of who we are and how we behave and how we make decisions and how do we continue to operate this thing called the Thunder, right? It has to be about something more than basketball. It has to be bigger than ourselves. And in many ways, we look at that economically. We look at how we've inspired the economics of the city, how we've been a part of the current renaissance, and so many of the business leaders probably in this room have spent some time working with us on how we create a culture and how we create an environment that has been great for business and entertainment. It's equally as important to create a brand of value and a brand of trust and a brand that you can believe in, a brand that you can be inspired by. That is, again, so much bigger than just basketball. And I go back to that first summer of 2008, we sat around with Sam Presti and Clay Bennett and so many of our executives, and we really started to articulate what did we want this to look like, and how were we going to operate, and what were we going to be as a business. And we settled upon three core pillars of our business. And the first was economically driven. It was how are we going to be sustainable? We're in a small market for our business. Right? I don't know about being a small market for everyone's business. But for what we do, who we compete with for talent and for media and for revenue, we're a small market. So we have to have very principled behavior in how we invest in our business and our resources, how we create the revenue streams, how we put the players up in a position to be successful. And sustainability takes a backbone. There are so many times in our experience already, in just 9 years, where we've been challenged by so many near-term opportunities that could have easily derailed us in long-term success. My favorite example of that is as the team went to the NBA Finals in 2012, we are literally at the pinnacle of our business. We're in the NBA Finals. And what you're presented with in a moment like that are so many near-term opportunities to take advantage of the moment, to strike when the iron's hot, and to literally capture any and all that you can. And we had so much advice from the NBA and from some other teams that had been in that situation previously, telling us how to capitalize on the moment. And I'm so proud of an organization that I can look back on years later that did not take the path of least resistance, that did not just take everything that was in front of us. Because I don't know that that would have allowed us to be in the position we are today, which is entering our 10th season with as much momentum, economically and otherwise, as we've ever had. That we have a backbone about what we do and how we do it, and to not take advantage of the market, to not take advantage of our business partners, to not take advantage of the consumer, but to continue to be very principled and disciplined in what we do and how we do it, and the investments that we make. And our business metrics today are as good as they've ever been. This is a year removed from losing one of the best players in the world, who was really the heart and soul of the organization. And to lose him, and to have a team that has had the successes it has had this year on the court, but off the court, still be ranked in the top 5 in the league in season ticket subscriptions, season ticket revenue, locally generated sponsorship revenue and support, social media engagement, television ratings, and merchandise sales. To be in the top 5 in the league and to outperform markets like New York and Chicago and Houston and Dallas and Denver in that regard is a phenomenal testament, I think, to this community and the sense of engagement that we've created, the sense of value that we've created. And it's not lost on us that we have to continue to invest in what got us to that place so that it's a sustainable formula. And so that was always at the heart and the first pillar of how we thought we would build our business. The second was to be a meaningful leader in the community. We had a conversation at lunch about some of the things that we believe in. If you've heard the organization speak, you know we care a lot about addressing the literacy issues in our city and our state, about eating healthy and combating issues of diabetes and obesity and some of the other things that are challenging, and about physical fitness, which are related to some of those earlier issues as well. So our community investments, the programs we create, whether it's the Rolling Thunder Book Bus, or it's the Thunder Fit program, or it's the curriculum that we take into the elementary schools, designed to help kids to make better decisions, to invest in reading, to see reading is fun, it's cool, it's helpful, it's stimulating. Having a player advise you on that, having your hero tell you that, having a hero give you a book in 3rd grade is a life-changing experience. We're at a point now in our maturation as a business that kids that we impact in 2008, 2009, 2010 are now in high school. And we're getting letters from administrators and teachers and parents all the time telling us, we still remember the day the Rolling Thunder book bus rolled up to XYZ Elementary School, and somebody, one of your players or coaches was there, and helped my son or my daughter, see that reading was worth it, or fun. And what a rewarding thing for us to be a part of. Same thing with eating habits and physical fitness. Those are things we really care about, and it's a meaningful way for us to be involved. And I don't know that's defining us necessarily as an organization, but it's probably one of the things we think about the most, is how can we provide meaningful service and meaningful engagement and use the power of the brand and our players to make a difference. The third pillar is about creating a respectful engagement in any way, shape, or form. Now, a lot of that is through the game experience, right? You go to the games, hopefully you are treated unbelievably well. From the moment you enter that building, you're greeted by a ticket taker, and you're helped by an usher, or somebody's answering a question for you, or somebody's helping you find your way. We've created a service culture that I think is second to none in our business. We care about people, we care about their experience, we care about the connections that are being made, we care about the emotional involvement that we are so engaged with. I'll tell you a quick story about some executives from the Boston Celtics that were here a few years ago. If you know anything about basketball, the Boston Celtics will tell you they invented the game, right? And the 17 World Championship, they might be right. But their executives were here, they were at the game on a Sunday afternoon. The next day, they spent the better part of the day working with us at kind of best practices seminar workshop. And before the meeting started, we said, "How was your experience last night?" And they all chuckled. And so we drew it out of them. They could not believe the sense of community that had been created at a game. People knew each other. They greeted each other by name. They welcomed each other to their seats. As the game was concluded, they all said goodbye to each other. They wished each other well. They said, "Have a great week. I'll see you on Tuesday. I'll see you at church. I'll see you at Joey's basketball game." There was a sense of familiarity and camaraderie that had been created in these seating sections. And we took that for granted. But we asked them, "What's it like in Boston?" And they said, "It was an anonymous experience. Nobody knows each other. They're all there as a guest of somebody else." It's a big cosmopolitan market, obviously. But they've never thought about or taken the time to create that sense of community. Because I don't know if that's a priority to them, right? So that's not a knock on them. That's just not a priority in that business. But it is to us. And it makes a huge impact on our ability to create meaningful engagement. And it drives our revenue performance. It drives our emotional performance as well. And we care about that. Same reason why if you walk around the building, or if you go to an event, or if you go to a coach's clinic, or if you go to a youth basketball clinic, or anything that we do, even outside of the game experience, hopefully your relationship with the team is second to none. That the content that we create is meaningful, it's warranted, it's safe. The environment you're in, is professionally constructed. That the things that we do are purposeful and intentional. Those are important things for any business to build their value system on. And for us, it's paramount. It's paramount to what we do and how we believe. And I find a lot of similarities into some of the experiences that I have had as a kid growing up, particularly going through Catholic school, from elementary to high school to college. There was always a sense of purpose. There was always a sense of community. There was always an inspiration to serve others. There was always an inspiration to do things the right way and to treat others well. And I hope that I've been able to bring some of that to the Thunder, and I know many others have had just as much impact on that as well. But it's an organization that does care, and it's an organization that understands that its role is to provide something more meaningful than just a game of basketball. So when you think about the Thunder, hopefully you think of those things, and you judge us on those characteristics and attributes, and not so much on team performance. Although that obviously is a part of the game. But to be sustainable and to have long-term success, we obviously care about everything off the court, more so than we have about on the court. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate the opportunity to represent the organization and to be a part of this group. Thank you.